From Ticker, you're watching She's the Boss. Here's Jules Brooke.
Hi and welcome to She's the Boss, the show all about women in business and female founders. And my name is Jules Brooke. I'm the founder of my own business, Handle Your Own PR as well. So I know very well what it's like. Now, before we get started today, I wanted to have a little rant because on Facebook the other day, I was scrolling through and saw a post by a woman I know who has got a bit of profile, and somebody had said to her, you really need to be careful, you're putting out videos and you're doing posts on Facebook and you're not made up and it's really going to damage your brand. And for some reason that absolutely stuck in my craw. So I wanted to talk about it today because I really feel that on the back of what's going on with the pandemic and the fact that everybody has been learning about Zoom and having to run their businesses from home, that a lot of us are seeing what we would consider people being real, as in they're not wearing makeup, maybe their hair isn't perfect, but obviously that doesn't change them and it doesn't change the content that they're actually talking about. And while I was ranting about it, I went and had a little snoop online and found an article by Tracy Sniper back from 2014, where she decided that she was way too made up for TV and that she wanted to look much more real. And one of the stats that she said in it is that in our lifetimes, women will spend over 3,000 hours just doing grooming compared to guys who spend about 1,000 plus. So both of those are very rough numbers. But that is an enormous difference. And I guess what I wanted to put out to you is, what do you think is happening on the back of the pandemic? Do you think that we're not lowering our standards, but starting to see people unmade up or looking more real, and that's affecting how you think about them? Or do you think that really it depends much more on what they think and the way that they act, rather than just expecting people to be looking like dolls, on TV or on social media, and it doesn't matter what they say as long as they look good? So my thought for the day, and what I wanted to say, is how important it is to judge people not by the way that they look, but what they say and what they do. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that as well. But anyway, let me get into the show. So today I have two fantastic guests coming to join me. I've got Stephanie Thompson, sorry, having a bit of a blank there, who is also known as Brave Mama, and she's written a book with a title that I just love, that I'm sure a lot of people find very confronting, which is The Day My Vagina Broke. And then we've also got Bev Ryan. Now, Bev is a book coach and has helped loads and loads of women get their books together. Her most recent book is Smart Women Published. So welcome, ladies.
Great to be here. Hi.
It's fantastic to have you both here. I don't know if you heard my rant before, but I'd love to ask you first what you think about that, especially as we've got both of you, and one of you is slightly more, Bev, you're slightly more senior, a little bit more like me, and then we've got Steph, who's a little bit younger. So I'm going to ask you, but before we go anywhere, oh my God, I have to say, Steph, happy birthday. I know it's your 40th today.
Thank you very much, and it's a great way to spend my birthday.
Oh, good. Well, it's great to have you on the show too. So I might as well go with you first. What are your thoughts on what's happening through the pandemic and people not necessarily all dollying up in order to do Facebook posts or to do Zoom meetings? Do you think that's important?
I have loved it, because for the first time, as a mum with two children under 4, I actually can relate to a lot of women. I feel like I'm being represented, because I generally don't wake up having hair done and makeup. And
no, that's right.
Yeah, I did it especially for today. One, because it does make me feel good, and it also helps me realize that I'm going to work. I have a purpose today other than just wiping bottoms and cleaning up.
Yes, so there is a bit of that. And what about you, Bev? Because we, being slightly more mature, shall we say, did grow up with, you don't go out the door without putting on your lipstick. But I personally am loving seeing all these women, and we've seen lots of big celebs as well without makeup and talking and being real. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, likewise, I love it. You feel like you're connecting with the real person behind the story. And having said that, I've dressed up for today because this is important to me. And I feel like I'm honouring you and I'm honouring my audience. So it's really about the situation, and it's like when you see someone who's looking natural on Zoom these days, it's like being invited into their home for a cup of coffee. It's lovely.
Yeah, that is such a lovely way of putting it. What a great thing to say. Okay, so now I've got both of you here. I want to find out a little bit more about you. So let's start with you, Steph. What an amazing title for a book. I love it. Very controversial. I'm sure a whole lot of guys went, oh, the day my vagina broke. I'm not sure about that. But you're not targeting blokes, I'm sure. So tell me a little bit about what it is that you do now and why you're doing it.
Sure. Interestingly, though, I've actually also had a few women who haven't liked it either. It's been a little bit too confronting for them. I had to do it that way because we are talking about a topic that is very taboo.
Yeah.
And isn't spoken about and isn't allowed to be spoken about in the open realm. So hence why I had to really kind of put it out there for everyone to say, oh, what does that mean? What happened there? Do you know what I mean?
So people start talking about this topic. And what is the topic? Tell us what happened, Stephanie.
So it's actually about my journey to motherhood. In 2015, I had quite a traumatic birth with my little girl, Elsie, and one that totally blindsided both my husband and myself, because we read all the pregnancy books, we did all the birthing classes, and with me being that A-type personality, I wanted it to be the best, so we did extra classes and extra homework, and we thought we were really good students. And then when something like this happens to you, you are left wondering why, a little bit shocked, and it took a while to process what actually did happen, because it's not talked about even in the medical profession.
Were you able to find any literature on it? I mean, when that had happened to you, was there anywhere you could go other than to your GP or obstetrician, gynecologist?
Unfortunately, well, no. And the reason why is because the word normal. So everyone says to you, including your midwives, the hospital staff, even within your women in your trusted circle, say, well, that's normal childbirth, darling. That's natural childbirth. That's what can happen. Without really realising the extent of the damage, I guess.
Yeah. So what does that made you want to do? So you've had this awful traumatic birth, you've been injured as a result of it, and you've written this book. But what are you actually doing now? What is Brave Mama?
Oh, okay. So the reason why I created Brave Mama is because for 3.5 years, I lived in silence. Nobody knew what happened to me, and it's totally an invisible injury that no one can see. From the outside, we look like we're that normal, happy family. Yeah. We also lived that life for 3.5 years because we thought we had to. But then when I realised, I had a couple of breakdowns, as a lot of new mums do, adjusting to motherhood.
That's right.
And because until I kind of got a diagnosis of what happened, so what it's called is a pelvic organ prolapse, basically meaning that my pelvic floor the muscles were torn away from the bone during childbirth.
Good. Sorry.
I'm laughing.
I can imagine without you having to explain. So just tell me a little bit now, though, about Brave Mama, because you set that up subsequently to this, haven't you? You've set up what is it? Is it a group that supports women who've gone through this kind of injury?
It started as a Facebook page because I realised that through that journey I had to do a lot of adjustments to our daily life just to be able to survive.
Right.
And I thought, surely I'm not the only one. Surely I'm not the only one that failed childbirth, right?
Yeah.
So I put it out there, and very quickly it has grown beyond belief. There are so many women like me who have had similar stories, similar experiences, and are left with
and it's
lifelong
just not talked about at all. I mean, I just find the whole thing really amazing. And when I posted up on social media that you were coming on the show, we also had women, and I know that you saw the post as well, going, thank goodness, oh my God, I had that happen to me and no one can talk about it.
And there's a little bit of it goes pretty deep. And so Brave Mama really was formed so that we can be a beacon of courage to other mums to support them in their journey if they have had birth trauma or been injured from birth. But then more so for expectant mums, because I feel like those textbooks are only telling half the story.
Yeah, they need to be aware that there is a risk as well. Well,
we talk about Sorry.
No, that's all right. I was just going to go. I love what you're doing now. I'm going to move on from there to you being an author in a minute. But first, let me talk to Bev and find out a little bit about what she does and why it is that she does it. Bev, can you give me a little rundown on what it is you do and why?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just listening to Steph. I mean, that's part of the reason I do what I do, helping mostly women bring books together. Yeah. Books are very powerful things, and we've all got books that have changed our lives. Yeah. And as an author, you can change your own life as well. So there's two sides to it. I guess I started out as an English teacher, and so I guess there's a bit of a background there with words and language. In my 40s, I had a career crisis. I was a mum of 4. And wanted to do my own thing. Yeah. I really wanted to be a boss. I love your she's a boss. She's the boss. I want to be a boss.
Now. You are a boss.
I used to wonder, how do women do this thing, being a boss? Anyway, I did a bit of career introspection through a book. I found a great book. See, these books are powerful things.
They are very powerful.
And I found my way into self-publishing. And at that time, this is the late 90s, I realised that I could actually self-publish a magazine. I didn't have to get permission from anybody. So I self-published a magazine called Work From Home, which is, this is 20 years ago. Yeah. Do my maths, about 20 years ago. And, you look at us, we're working from home. That was huge. So I did that for 3 years. And then a few years after that, I then self-published another magazine called Honestly Woman, really for enterprising women. Just be real, It was the antithesis to all the glossy magazines, because women said, look, I love magazines, but I just don't want the glossy ads. I don't want the 13-year-olds modelling clothes that it's just...
Yeah, look at all that unrealistic stuff. And was this a physical magazine or was this a digital magazine?
Yeah, both of them were print magazines. They were distributed.
I think you need to relaunch them, but just do them as digital magazines. Now is the time.
Well, yeah, I did Honesty Woman as a digital magazine a few years ago. It's monetising magazines is a tricky one. It's a hard one. So when I finished Honesty Woman magazine, which is 2009, right. I wanted to keep working with mature women, or women, enterprising women with an attitude and self-determination in their heart. So I just realised that more people were starting to self-publish books.
Yeah.
And it was a growing trend, and I realised, I know how to self-publish, so I started to coach or run little workshops for women, just teaching them the steps of self-publishing and also giving them the confidence to share their voice. And from that, I've evolved to the point now where I really can help somebody from an idea right through to the book on their shelf. Or non-fiction. I focus on non-fiction.
Which is amazing. And I think for a lot of women, I mean, I'm always talking to women who go, I'd love to write a book, or I want to write a book, but they often don't know where to start. And I do think as women as well that we like to have someone to do something with, like we like our girlfriends and we like those mentors. So to have a service like yours where you can take them right the way through and coach them right the way through that process, it must be so rewarding for you as well.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful. And it suits my personality. Well, it suits what I like to do. I love seeing, I love a project where you start with an idea. There's a lot of cerebral activity going on there, as Steph will know. And then at the end, you've got the design, and this thing comes to life, and then it kind of takes on an energy of its own. Yeah, but the book the book can bring out things to you that you would not even expect to come to you. So I'm sort of interested if that's what's happened for Steph with her book.
Yeah, so Steph, what has happened with your book? Tell us.
I realised by writing this story down, it released a whole bucket of grief I was carrying on my back.
Wow.
Which I didn't even really realise at the time. I just was chugging along and doing the daily thing.
So it's very therapeutic to just get that out.
Oh, so cathartic. It was amazing. Yes.
And then how's the book going? How recently was it published? I think it was a month or so ago, was it?
It was first launched just late last year, November.
Right.
But it was totally sold out very quickly. So now we've gone to the second print run starting just last week. So that was been really exciting.
That's amazing. Well, and not only that, just goes really to show, that how many women there are out there that really do need this kind of information and can't access it very well anywhere else by the sounds of things.
Sadly, yes.
That's a great thing. Okay, so ladies, now I just want to know some of what you've learned along the way that we could maybe share with other women who'd be watching the show who are either thinking about starting their own business or they've already started and they just want some tips. What sort of things have you learned along the way that you could help other people with? Let me start with you, Bev. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a blank today.
It's okay.
Can you tell me some of the things that you've learned along the way running your own business?
I think the one thing that got me started back when I was 40 something was the idea of having a support team, not trying to do it on your own, because it's you just lose momentum when you're at home and you're just doubting yourself. You can do your head in. So as a great support team or a mentoring group or something like that that you can tap into on a regular basis is really, really important. You don't have to spend a lot of dollars to start a business. I know there are certain advisors out there that say, oh, you need to have X amount of dollars. My first magazine, I sold advertising in it, which covered the cost of production. So I actually made money on my first magazine. Now,
wow, that's got to be
if
really
I went
unusual.
Well, because it was small, it was a niche magazine. I love the idea of niche and small.
Think small and try something first and then grow it if it's successful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, test out do research. Find out if women actually want a product that you're developing or a service. Check that first.
How do you normally do your research, Bev, then? If you're saying to someone do research, what do you suggest?
Yeah, with my authors, when they're in the planning stage, I always tell them, look, just check with your potential reader and see if they actually want to read these books, So it could be like formal surveys, but people generally won't respond to formal surveys, or they're too busy.
Like a survey monkey
focus
type
groups,
thing, you're thinking? Oh yeah, focus groups.
Yeah. Focus groups, what's called an idea party, get people in a room and just have a conversation, give them some wine and some food and just get people talking. But invite the people that you think will be your audience. Don't invite random people because you don't need to know what they think.
No. Well, that's really good. And one of the other things that I see people do that I think is a good idea is to create those Facebook polls that you're allowed to do, I think up to 3 questions, and push it into some of those groups that have loads and loads and loads of people in them. And that way you can start to get an indicative thing as well. I guess it depends whether you want quantitative or qualitative, whether you want to actually hear those opinions or whether you want some numbers to support you.
Yeah. A lot of times, well, in what I do with books, it's more of opinions and just checking that what you think someone wants to read is what they do want to read, and likewise it could be a purchase as well. But also ask those people in the room, well, what else do you need or want?
Yes,
you don't,
yes.
You may not even have thought of that.
I saw somebody who is about to write a book do a little survey actually recently through a whole lot of different social media groups saying, this is what I want to say, but what else do you want to know? Which I thought was really clever. I think survey, because most of the people that have come on the show, if we are offering tips to other women, say, do some research, find out if there's a gap in the market. And whether people are interested in what it is that you want to do. So focus groups are a really good idea, actually. I hadn't thought of that. You can just run little dinner parties in your home almost. Or
Zoom meetings. And my other tip is just to sort of kind of take care of the money. There's a bit of a glam thing, run your own business and you'll be happy forever. It's hard work and...
It is, and
look
you've
after
got to
the
have
dollars.
Nerves of steel when it comes to the finances sometimes, I think.
Look, I basically have 2 things. I've got a consultancy income, which is kind of up and down, but it's there. And I've got my books, which come and go. So, I love the fact that... how did you guys find that video? I love the research.
That's right.
Yeah, I love the fact that I've got two slightly different things. It makes it interesting. So
great. All right. So now I'm going to put the same question to you, Steph. On your journey, what have you learned that you wish somebody would have said to you right at the very beginning, or that you think might help other women who are thinking about going out on their own? And let me just say, the first thing is you don't want to get injured if possible in order to do that. But, just on the business side of things, can you tell me a little bit about, how it's gone and what you've learned?
Absolutely. I think you have to be able to be open in your thinking and think outside the box. So by that, I mean being flexible in thinking, well, I don't have X amount of funds to do this. So what am I going to do? How am I going to publish this book if I've got no money? So in my instance, we did a crowdfunding campaign to print the first print run of the book.
Oh, that's clever. And what did you do? Offer people copies of the book if they put a certain amount of money in?
Correct. I only exactly what the recommended retail was. So they were just pre-ordering plus some postage. It wasn't exorbitant, sorry.
Yeah.
But what I will say is it took a lot of guts and a lot of grit, because to successfully complete a crowdfunding campaign of that amount, you have to be consistently putting your message out there and giving people something. You can't just keep asking for money. And
right.
For me, I'm extremely independent financially and all the rest. So that was the hardest part of the journey, was to say, hey, here's my book. It's going to be really good. Can you order it now? Like, it felt weird.
But it's interesting you say that, because I have seen that now with quite a few crowdfunding campaigns, and I think people, if they love what it is that you do and they want to support it, they don't have any problem at all with putting their money down first. You know,
Yes.
and if you're writing a book, they know they're going to get a book at the other end of it. So I think that's really clever. Bev, have you had other women that you know of that have done crowdfunding to launch their books or to fund their book?
Yeah, none that I've worked with directly, but there's a great platform for authors called Publishizer.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a crowdfunding platform for book writers. So I recently interviewed someone for my podcast, and she used the Publishizer platform. She raised over $20,000.
Wow.
And she got a publishing deal out of it as well. And but she's a coach, a women's coach, so she was offering her book as the basic level, but then she was adding coaching programs around her book for higher level, for donations. Yeah. So yeah, she did very well.
Right. So Steph, tell me what's next for Brave Mama. What do you want to achieve? So you've got the book out. You obviously want to get the word out so that all those women out there that do need that help can get it. But what are your sort of big, hairy, audacious goals for what Big Mama might turn into?
Well, what we want to do, we want to change childbirth for the better. I want to be, my big dream goal is to prevent this, because I have a little girl. This is not happening to her. Right. She's not going to be blindsided by childbirth, because she's going to know that there are two camps in the childbirth space. There's the natural birthers and there are the obstetrics.
Right.
And my big goal is for someday, somehow, is to get them to come together in the middle. Now, I know that's huge and it's quite political. One mum can't do that alone. Yes. But what I can do is be the advocate for other mums who are in the middle, kind of going, what do I choose? Where do I go? This information's so conflicting. How do I make the informed choice to how I'm going to birth my baby?
Yeah.
And by that, it's by individualizing the care, because at the moment it is one size fits most.
Right.
So I now know through a very long process and a legal process that I had major risk factors that really should have had me thinking about a cesarean over a vaginal birth.
Right.
And I don't call it natural birth, because a baby coming into this world through your tummy or through your vagina is all natural.
Both natural.
And it's
That's a really lovely thing to say, actually. You're quite right. And I think that people in the birthing industry, all the doctors and nurses, get used to their own language and they don't realise how it impacts on the women that are their patients.
Absolutely. We honestly thought cesarean was always that, oh, you failed, mum, off you go, emergency Caesar, because you couldn't do your job.
Yeah, that's
sadly.
It. Or that you're too posh to push, which is the other thing we hear about with Caesars, which also I think is very unfair. So, okay, I've got one nice controversial question for both of you, and you've both touched on it a little bit, but I think if I go out and speak to young women out there who are thinking about starting up their business, one of the questions that keeps coming back is, how do I set up a business if I've got no money? Now, you've both kind of touched on it, but I'd love you to give just some insight, if you've got any, in terms of what you would suggest people could do if they really have a great idea, but maybe they just don't have any money in the bank at the moment. Let me start with you, Bev. Have you got any suggestions?
I do. Would seriously recommend the book that got me started with publishing.
Oh, okay.
And it's got all of those tips in it, how to start something from, how to kind of just achieve something from a low startup capital,
Yeah.
but also just the courage to do things. So the book is called Wishcraft, as in WISHCRAFT, wishcraft.com. And you could, it's an old book. It's just a perennial. It's really, really worth its weight in gold. You can probably get used copies on Amazon or wishcraft.com. You can actually download all the chapters, so you can get it for free.
What was it in the book that it was there one single thing that kind of really got to you and you thought, that's it, I'm really going to take the bull by the horns and start now?
One was the support factor. Her motto is isolation is a dream killer.
Yeah,
so
very true.
So but the other thing was she's got a section where she just maps out a plan. So you put your end goal in place and work backwards, and figure out your steps going backwards to the point where, okay, well, if I'm going to achieve that end goal at a certain time, I better get started today. And this is what I'll start with today.
I remember seeing Dr. Wayne Dyer 100 million years ago, and him saying the whole point with your career, what you should do is like, imagine you're old and you're at the top of the mountain and you're looking down and you've got to work out how the hell you got there. And that's a really good way of trying to sort of plan how you're going to get that business up and running.
And the point... sorry.
No, go on.
I just said the point she made was that you won't know how to do all the steps, but that's part of your planning is you find out who does know and you ask.
Yes, and that's actually, I always say you don't get anything if you don't ask for it. So if you do know somebody who can help you, asking is the first thing I'd think of. So Anne, what about you, Steph? Have you got any suggestions for basically starting from scratch?
Absolutely. You have to be so confident in your idea that it's passionate, that you wake up thinking about it, you go to bed thinking about it, and then you have grit. So when times get tough and it's really tricky, you dig deeper and deeper. And that's the only way if you know that's the right thing for you, is because you won't stop until you achieve. You fall down,
I think that's great.
Back up. Fall down, you get back up,
then
you get a published book because you've worked so hard, whatever your end goal is, of course.
Yeah, well done. I think that's terrific. And I would have to say for mine, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking doing the prep and the research I think is really important first, as we've talked about, to actually identify that there is a market there and people who will part with their money to actually take your service or your product or your book. If you do need money, I think the idea of crowdfunding is fantastic. I love what Steph did, and I think crowdfunding is there exactly for that reason. So if you can't tap into family and friends, then start thinking about crowdfunding. And lastly, I would say think online, because these days everyone's online anyway, and the barriers to entry are incredibly low if you can start your business online. I mean, even as I was talking to Bev about a magazine, a print magazine is expensive, but a digital magazine isn't expensive on the production side anyway. I'm not saying that there's not time. So if you're prepared to invest your time, then I think you're 3/4 of the way there, and then you just go online. Setting up a website, even children can do it these days.
Yes.
So there's always a way to just get started, and then you can start growing it once. And also, my last one would be, don't try and wait for it to be perfect. Just get started, because you can perfect it later on. But listen, girls, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. If people want to get hold of you, what's the best way? Can you start, Steph, and let people know the best way to get hold of you?
So just head over to bravemama.com, and it's got all the links to the Facebook pages and blogs and things like that there.
Fantastic. And for you, Bev?
Yeah, smartwomenpublish.com.
I love that domain. That's fantastic. Well, thank you both, as I said, very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the show today. If you have, then tell everyone that you know about it. We've got a fantastic new Ticker website as well that you can have a look at. We've got the app in the App Store, but we now also have the app reflected on the website. So there is no excuse for not watching the show. And I really hope to have you back again next week when I have 2 more amazing guests coming on.
Hey, good morning. Ticker's new breakfast show.
Well, most of the time in the morning, I annoy people. I think Ben is so fabulous. He is wild, he is warm, he is witty.
The first time I met Alana, I realised I wanted to have a drink with her.
You never know what's going to come out of his mouth.
Kick off your morning with Ticker Jumpstart.
We are playing in uncharted territory.
This preparation takes me all night.
It doesn't matter how long I take, because Ben will always take longer.
Ticker Jumpstart with Benjamin Norris and Alana McLean.
You're going to get some different stuff with us, and we're going to be unapologetic for it.
You do realise it's the morning, so you don't need to be the human coffee.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices.